I make myself. All right, so now we will get started. Oh, there's one other thing that I need to do, which is to mute everyone. All right, there we go. I always forget that little bit. All right. Welcome to the virtual Pasadena Senior Center and the Cynthia Rosedale Memorial Sports Talk Series, Ask the Athletes. I'm Annie Lasky, the Director of Events at the Pasadena Senior Center. I also have the pleasure of being the manager of our Pasadena Senior Games, which unfortunately we had to cancel this year, but we will be back in 2022. And I'm also happy just to announce that I have just been elected to the National Senior Games Board of Directors. So it's a national movement, and it's really exciting. So those of you who are joining us who are not Senior Games athletes, we'll see you in 2022. And for those of you new to the Pasadena Senior Center, we offer social services, physical fitness, and arts and culture programming to older adults. We are an independent, donor-supported nonprofit organization. This program is named in honor of one of the Senior Center's staunchest supporters, whose legacy continues to fund our programs. Cynthia Rosedale was the longtime director of events at the Pasadena Senior Center. A tireless advocate for senior wellness, Cynthia brought the Pasadena Senior Games to the center in 1994, when these athletic competitions for older adults were just beginning to spread across the nation. We continue to celebrate her vision through programs such as this. And I'm also delighted to say that the Senior Center is finally going to be limited back open to the public starting tomorrow, June 15th. So check out our website, pasadenaseniorcenter.org, to find out what programs we're doing live in person and which ones we're still continuing on Zoom. So Ask the Athletes is co-presented by the California Senior Games Association with assistance from the San Diego Senior Games. This will be the last of our Ask the Athlete programs. As the world begins to open up and Zoom begins to lessen a little bit, we decided it's a good time to leave us with this being the sixth one that we will have done. I've had a wonderful time doing them, and I just wanted to give a special thank you to Ann Warner-Cribbs and Helen Mendel of the California Senior Games Association, and Kirsten Cummings of the San Diego Senior Games for their wonderful work with the program. It's been just a sheer delight to work with them and to bring these programs to you. The programs are on the California Senior Games website at californiaseniorgames.org. This one will be posted, and all 6 of them are available for viewing. During the presentation, as you saw, I muted the audience microphones, but you are welcome to put any questions and observations in the chat. And then following the formal discussion, we will open it up to audience questions, and you'll have a chance to unmute at that time. It is now my privilege to introduce the moderator of today's program, Ann Warner-Cribbs. She is the chair of the California Senior Games Association and director of the Bay Area Senior Games and Encore Games. She is also one of the founders of the groundbreaking American Basketball League, as you would have heard more about with last month's Women's Basketball Ask the Athletes. And here she is. I am now going to pass the spotlight over to Ann, and thank you so much for everything in the past and for this future. There you go.
You're welcome. And I am going to give up my role admitting people in and give it back to you, Annie. So thank you very much for that great introduction. I'm excited to be here today. I am thrilled that we are going to wrap up our series for now with tennis. And I was so happy to be able to reach out to my good friends, Rosa Casals and Dick Gould, who I've known, it seems like forever, and watched their careers and watched the things that they've done both for tennis, for the community, Rosie for women, Dick for education, and so many things, and say, hey, would you join us on this Zoom call? So I'm so happy they're here. And I'm also happy to introduce a new friend, Brian Teacher, who I've just learned about some of the things that he's doing. So Brian, welcome. Glad that you could join us as well. So the format today is pretty simple. I'm going to ask some questions of our guests, and they're free to kind of say whatever they want to say. And I'm trusting them. So let's start with Rosie, please. Rosie, can you talk a little bit, because when I looked at Wikipedia, there's so much good stuff about you that we would be here for the whole Zoom call if I read it. Would you talk a little bit about your career in tennis and the highlights of it, and then what you're doing now, please?
I can. Of course, I am from the Bay Area. I'm living in Palm Desert because the weather's a little bit warmer, although today it's 110 degrees, which is a little bit warm. It's your kind of thing, swimming. But anyway, I got started in the Bay Area. My dad used to play tennis, so we started at Golden Gate Park. He asked me about, whether I had seen it, Dick, and I know that they've done a beautiful job of redoing the clubhouse, the courts, and everything. So I'm looking forward. I won't recognize the court that I used to play on. So, but that's where I started my journey in tennis, and played through the juniors, and eventually met Billie Jean King, who asked me to go to Wimbledon, and I of course I said yes. And I never looked back in regards to wanting to play professionally and wanting to be the best, and traveling, and just really living my dreams. So I was very fortunate to have been introduced to tennis. I didn't know anything about it. I sort of came from the wrong side of the tracks. So, we played basketball and baseball and all those street games, but tennis was something new. But it's been an exciting journey for me. Opened a lot of doors. The original nine, which last year unfortunately was our 50th anniversary, but we didn't get a chance to celebrate because the pandemic came along and we couldn't travel and we couldn't see one another. But we're very fortunate that we are going to be inducted this year into the International Tennis Hall of Fame.
Wow.
At the first group, the original nine. So we fought that little battle because they had not even thought about groups, and we, agreed that they should change their bylaws to include some of the, players that really made a difference in women's tennis and pretty much put women's tennis on the map. And that was the 9 women who were very brave, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. I'm also involved with my foundation, that the Love and Love Tennis Foundation I established in 2015 with past player and friend Tori Fritz. And we, give free tennis clinics throughout the Coachella Valley to any kid who wants to play, any ages. So I've been busy doing that, except for last year. We weren't busy doing much of anything with kids. So I decided that I should start hitting more tennis balls, getting in shape, and that I did. So I'm quite happy about that. Back in the game again and enjoying it very much. So yeah, all is good as far as I'm concerned. We're back.
Well, Rosie, you know what? It's such a great story, and your legend really precedes you. When I was talking to a few people about doing this panel, it was like, Rosie Casals, really? She's going to be?
Is she still alive? Yeah.
Well, nobody said that. Nobody said that. So
Yeah.
anyhow, thanks for all you do. Rosie, I should say, was one of the only women who was on the Bay Area Sports Organizing Committee bid group in 1999 when we were asked to bid by San Francisco's Willie Brown on the Olympics in for 2012. And it was sort of like when they called me to ask me if I would join the committee, I thought, well, how can you have an Olympic Games and bid for one if you have no women on the committee? And it was really, I think, Rosie, at the beginning, it was you and I. And
But you
Give
took
up
it to
hockey
the next
lacrosse.
level, though. You took it. We should have had the Olympics in the Bay Area. That's what should have happened. We got screwed.
I'll let you say that, Rosie, because you know what, Dick, she's absolutely right. So we're going to turn now to my other friend, Dick Gould, who has been, wow, the longtime coach at Stanford with an incredible record of tennis and tennis success and doing wonderful things now in the community, as I said earlier, with tutoring in tennis and the belief that I think that if you can play tennis, you can learn to study. If you can learn to study, you can play tennis. So Dick, tell us a little bit about your tennis career. No, it's kind of local around my area and what you're doing now with yourself.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. And hello to everybody. And I hope you're enjoying a nice 80-degree weather like we are in Northern California today. I hear it's 100 down there again. So I haven't been in Bakersfield yesterday. I know a little bit what you're going through. A little different route for me. My parents didn't play tennis. I think a lot of kids that play tennis play because their parents drag them out to the courts and that gets them exposed and hit a couple balls with their folks and they're a good boy and girl before they go home, and it sparks an interest. For me, I was, my parents decided I was going to take a tennis lesson. I never had played. And I was about 11 years old. And I said, no, I'm not going to put on white shorts. And I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm. I don't want to wear those little things around town. I get laughed at. Take my cowboy boots off. And well, they said, do you want to ride your horse this summer? And I said, well, yeah. And they said, well, you better take a tennis lesson and see whether you like it or not. And Rosie, you might appreciate this. My coach was, his daughter lived in the desert, Nancy Chafee, and Nancy Chafee Kiner. And his name was Harold Chafee, and Nancy was one of the top 10 players in the world at the time and was an outstanding player. And this guy knew right away I didn't want to be in the tennis lesson. And he knew I liked other sports, every other sport but tennis. But he made every ball I hit exciting. And I don't think anyone's influenced what I've done from then on more than he. He equated everything I did with another sport. Rosie, you talked about playing the street games. Well, he said, you know, you watch the ball like Ralph Kiner watches it come out of the pitcher's hand, Ralph Kiner being one of the greatest hitters in baseball history. You step into the ball like Rocky Marciano, the heavyweight champion of the world at the time, steps into the punch. And everything he did was a thrill because he equated it to something that I could relate to. And so I got through that lesson. I went home and had a gravel driveway, but I hit against the garage. The ball bounced all over the place after hitting on the rocks and chased it for a couple hours and did more the next day. The next day I went back for another lesson next week and I was totally hooked. I was working in the summers on a farm, so I couldn't play tournaments as a junior, but I played enough to get a little bit of a Southern Cal ranking right in my last year in juniors and went to Stanford and fortunate enough to finally play on the team there. And I loved that. And the more I did it, I was teaching tennis in the summers and in the rec department in Ventura. So I really was enjoying the teaching and actually running the program. And one thing led to another. And my coach said, well, why don't you think about going into coaching? He said, you can have the security if you get a teacher, get a credential of a teaching job, and then you can make the ends meet by working at a club and then to give you private lessons on the side. So I said, okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to do that. So I started teaching at a local club and at a high school and then a junior college and this club. And 6 years later, my coach at Stanford retired. And it's one of those things when you're in the right place at the right time. That's all of life, I think, many times. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of hung on the athletic director's doorstep until he was forced to hire me. And I was at Stanford, and I think I'm the longest ever employee at Stanford Athletics. I worked there 52 years. And 30
and one of the most respected too, Dick.
Well, I don't know about that.
I do.
About that, but it was a glorious run for me. I loved it. I retired 4 years ago, and immediately the day after I retired, went to an office working on a nonprofit working on concussion education. So for the last 4 years, I've been working on designing and testing and developing concussion education, first of all, for youth football, but now for most of the U.S. Olympic committees. And they all have concussion education requirements for the coaches and their athletes. So it's been a fascinating thing for me. We're really the biggest player in the field now, and a lot of wonderful things are happening. And that's just really a pleasure to be doing something as a volunteer total, about 60 hours a week that can help other people with this terrible injury, and to understand it and to know best how to cope with it. So I've been blessed for 52 years at Stanford and 4 years beyond that with what I'm doing in my life.
It's a
Thanks
great
for asking
story.
me.
Yeah, it's a great story. Can I just ask, do tennis players, is there a concussion thing with them at all?
Well, James Blake, slipped and fell on clay, and Rosie, remember this, ran in, got in
Yeah.
a fight with the net post and got a concussion. And then a couple of years ago, some gal got rich because she slipped in the locker room at the US Open and got a concussion. But those are the two. In fact, the USA Tennis is a part of the Olympic Committee, of course, and the Olympic organization, but they are not interested in concussion education. But hockey, soccer,
Mhm.
baseball, gymnastics, artistic swimming, big concussion problem, are all not clients because everything you do is free, but they're all partners of ours.
And since you talked about the Olympics a little bit before I go on to Brian, what's your prediction for tennis in the Olympics this year?
Well, I just hope they keep it. Number one, after last year and all the training the kids did, then to get put down and have to put it in advance after being all ready to go and start from scratch again. As we also work a little bit with COVID and have a database, and one of our interviews with Ted Robinson with a gal named Laura Hutchinson, who was a 5-time Olympian diver, I believe, gold medal winner,
Mhm.
and Katie Ledecky. And they were talking at the time about, with COVID, as a speaker series we have on this website, they were talking about what it was like to be all revved up to go, then to be let down, then have to train and start all over again. Tremendous letdown. And I just hope for their sake, for the athletes' sake, that it's a safe game. It can't, number one, it can be held, and number two, it's a safe game. I know, I was talking to Ted Robinson the other day, and the broadcasters can't go near there. He'll be broadcasting out of the Olympics. I think he'll be out of Connecticut, Bristol, and so it's hard on everybody, and think of an athlete. You watch the French Open, Brian, last week, and Rosie, and you're seeing some great tennis. I didn't see anything except I did see the fourth set of Nadal, and if anybody saw it, Nadal and Djokovic. And I was going to watch 2 games in between some work I was doing. I couldn't turn it off. It was the most exciting tennis and best played tennis I've ever seen. And so, to have those guys doing this and used to doing it with no spectators. I hope a little later on, Rosie, we talk about world team tennis, because the championships are in your area this year in a bubble, so to speak, at Indian Wells. And that's just a great event for tennis. It's the best.
If I may say something, I mean, the problem with the Olympics is they're every 4 years. I mean, we play every year. I mean, we have a full schedule, so it's difficult when you're training. I would imagine. I mean, you would know that, Anne, when you're training, and your Olympics is 4 years, so you train for 4 years or whatever it is. If you're winter or whatever. I mean, that's a long time to go. Now they canceled last year, and if they canceled this year, that's what I mean. That's a lot of years that you've trained, and then I know maybe track and field's a little bit different from tennis. I don't know, what it feels like to train for 4 years for one moment in time.
One moment, and then the possibility that you may not make the team.
That's the only reason I would say they're thinking it should go on, because of the athletes that may not be able to wait another year.
Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dick, for that. All those stories and memories and all of that. I'm going to go on to Brian. Brian, I was very pleased to meet you from the introduction from Kristen Cummings, who said there's a guy who should be invited to come to the tennis panel. So here you are. Can you talk a little bit about your route to tennis, and then a little bit about what you're doing now?
Well, sure. I just want to just going over, Dick Gould is, he's a little bit shy, but he's an absolute living legend. He's
Still living. Bro.
most titles of any NCAA coach of any sport, in our country. So he's a legend, and Rosie is a legend, not only an unbelievable player, but I'm so happy that she's getting that award with the group of 9, because she's been a leader for pushing for women's sports and for women's rights. So incredible kudos to both those. And I've looked up to Dick Gould from when I first went up there as a kid to look at the school, and recently I have a 501c3 with John Letts, who went to Stanford, and we try to help underprivileged kids down here with tennis. And we went up to the Bay Area and looked at Dick Gould's model with his EPAT up there. He's got an incredible organization up there that helps kids not only with tennis, but in helping them with education. And so we've tried to tie in, just in our little thing we're doing here in Pasadena to help underprivileged kids, and we got to tie in with some learning through MIT with some of the kids at school up there. So I want kudos to Dick, and thank you again for having, for allowing us to come up there and look at your model. It was an incredible experience and learning, of course. So I started off, at Morley Field public facility in San Diego, and that's where I grew up in the late 50s, early 60s, playing tennis at the park there. And then, tennis there was no pro tennis at that time, and I hardly ever even saw tennis on TV, in those days. So it was all basically playing at the park and just hitting with kids all day long at the courts and trying to figure out how to play the game. And I got good enough playing in some national tournaments that I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to UCLA. I never had a dream of playing pro tennis. And then, one day I just started getting good in college, and I won the PAC, which was the PAC 8 singles and doubles titles at UCLA. And I was going, wow, I'm like a sophomore, and all of a sudden I'm kind of at the top level of the collegiate group there. And I said, well, maybe I could play on the pro tour. Let's see, let's finish this school out and let's see what I can do. There wasn't a lot of money in tennis, I think. So that was 72, 73, and 68. Tennis was the first US Open with professionals. And I remember Arthur Ashe, I think he beat Ocker in the finals, and it was like a $14,000 check in 68. So, it was a good amount of money, but still not a lot of money in those days. So, but it was at that time also when in the sophomore in college that I said, okay, I'm going to try this. But also I had immediately problems after that event the NCAAs were in 3 weeks, and all of a sudden I couldn't walk 2 days after that competition because I had such severe back pain, never had any back problem in my life. And of course, in those days, we had no insoles in our shoes. They were flat shoes. And it found out that the guy said, we did x-rays, and they said, oh, you have a congenital, spine defect, and you already have arthritis full blown in your spine and all the way up to your neck. And so you might need surgery. So it was at that time I said, if I'm really going to try to avoid surgery, I'm going to need to really get into some type of, stretching to make me more flexible. So, I read a really influential book, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And then from that book, I got into more of the physical, the Hatha yoga. And so I started doing the yoga when I was really 19, pretty religiously every day for, an hour to an hour and a half a day. And that was training and everything. So it allowed me actually to have a pro career because my back was so bad. And so by the time I was 35 and quit the tour, I thought I was going to start playing in the senior tour. And I found out, I said, well, Brian, you're stretching. I don't understand what's going on with your body. All of a sudden, 20 minutes, I can't move on the court. And I went to the doctor, and he says, you have the hips of a 70-year-old man. He says, you need new hip replacement. You need hips. And I said, you got to be kidding. I'm 35 years old. And he says, yeah, your hips are worn out. So I waited, really, my hips were already kind of fading. And I waited until I was 48 till I had my first hip replacement. And then I had my second one a year later. So tennis, for me hasn't really been part of the card since I was 35. Basically, I love the game. I wish I could play it every day, but it's just too, it's too painful for my joints. Even with 2 hip replacements, I can hit a little bit. I get warmed up, and then, I want to play more, and then I'm so stiff afterwards for a week to 2 weeks that I just don't bother, even with my stretching and stuff. So to me, I don't play tennis anymore. I love the game. I wish I could, so I've done coaching on the tour. I worked with professional players for, 10 to 12 years, traveling, helping them on the tour. And now I do a little bit of coaching, and I'm working with this, coaching app that we talked about, Full Court Tennis, which is the background here. And we're going to be featuring ATP coaches and some others, some other hopefully women organizations soon that I don't want to talk about. But so I'm excited with that. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love passing the knowledge on and helping people, to get better and have fun in this sport that's given me so much in life. And that's it. I played on the tour, and I won the Australian Open, and was lucky enough to get in the top 10 in the world in singles, and I think 6 in doubles. So that's kind of it in a nutshell where I'm at.
Wow, gosh, congratulations on that. What a story. One of the things that I love is that you and Dick and Rosie all know each other and have so much respect for each other. It's really great to see what sport does just in general, how it really, brings the world together. And I love your enthusiasm about your new product that you were talking about before we started. So can you do like a little thumbnail of what that's going to do? Because I really want to put some information about it on our Senior Games website, and I know people who are listening in would like to know about it. So just a short bit about what you've developed.
So in general, we're trying to we got the ATP coaches. We're trying to basically feature the top coaches in the world to build the largest global tennis community where you can follow, where the coaches can post their tips and drills, their analysis using the app technology. And so that you can follow, learn from them, and you can hire a coach for an in-app virtual lesson where you can you can hire a coach. They can set their rates, their availability, and you hire them, and you do a live video call. And in that lesson space, you can load, a full match, a practice session, and/or digital video you take with the app, and the coach can screen share it. And whatever time you book, it'll show the time, it'll show your signal strength. And you can screen share. And while you're on the phone, while you're on the video call, he can go over your match, which is streaming into the app. He can talk about what he sees. You can tell him certain places in the map, in the match you'd like to look at, and he can stream and scroll to that. And then he can go over your digital strokes. We have a pro library on there where he can press a button and look at your forehand next to one of the pros side by side and show you, the similarities, the differences, what you need to work on. And so we also have, so some coaches, for instance, that working with their students, they might have 30 or 40 students they work with a week, and they don't want to get hired by those coaches. They're already paying them a fee. So the coaches are going to be able to connect to the student easily in the app. And so for the ATP coaches and for other professional coaches that we're doing, we have this ability that you're going to be able to connect to your player if he's on the tour, and you're going to be able to add a team member. So for an ATP coach, he'll be able to add his ATP player in there. They'll be able to add an additional member into that video call, whether it's a trainer or an additional traveling coach, and they'll be able to share their information and schedule and go over video around the world. And we can, when you post, we can keep, just like Facebook, you can keep it public or you can make it private. And same if you don't want to be bothered in the app and you don't want a coach like pressing a button to connect with you for a lesson, you can make there's an allow list and a block list. So we've got all the private public things covered, and just really excited about it in general because it's using all this technology that we're on today for coaches and players to connect seamlessly and to learn basically.
Well, I can't wait to see this thing. It's gonna be just incredible, Brian. It's just the way you describe it. It's just what a great service it will be, and for so many people. It's tremendous.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm excited to see what we can do for the senior athletes. And so people who are on the call, look for Full Court Tennis and the explanation and how to get involved in it on our website as soon as Brian and I get that organized. So I think it's pretty amazing. So thanks for that.
Yeah,
I
and
want
just-
to,
Well, just
wanna-
one quick thing, just let me just say, so we're on
Sure.
iOS right now. I'm happy to send anybody that wants an invite, and we'll invite them to download the app, and I have a team that'll walk them through all the technology on it and get them going.
Perfect.
Okay?
Can you put that in the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just if you just, let's
Oh,
see.
yeah, okay, we can do it that way. That's fine. Annie,
Email me. Yeah.
you can do it that way. Okay, so I want to move now. I mean, we're coming out of COVID in California. We're looking forward to what the governor says tomorrow. Maybe there's masks in some places, maybe there's not. But it's been a long haul for everybody. It's not just, the kids at school, although they really had it tough, but it's everybody, every age, old, young, everybody. And so what did you guys do, the three of you who are always so positive and enthusiastic, to keep yourself going during COVID? And I'll start out by saying I'm usually pretty positive, enthusiastic. And if it weren't for swimming and being able to get in the water and make a reservation to swim 3 times a week, I would have been lost. So that's my story. Anyhow, Rosie, what about you?
Well, I feel the same way. I think tennis saved me. I was working with a couple of girls, and I got started hitting with them and playing with them. And, we spent at least 3 or 4 hours playing. And naturally, when they closed everything down, we had to go to different courts, and then they padlocked that and we had to go someplace else. And then fortunately, one of the gals had an uncle who is a farmer out in the Coachella, and he had an indoor court. Can you imagine? Because his kids played. So he had it's the only indoor court here. Beautiful AC, beautiful court. And we were able to play every single day. And while other people could not, because everything was closed at that time, everybody's thinking, no, we can't play tennis, we can't play golf, we can't do any recreational activities, till finally enough of the golfers bugged them, and enough of the tennis players, because tennis didn't open up till July. So, for me, it was a savior, because I couldn't do anything with kids with my foundation. And I still spend a lot of time with tennis. So got me fitter, made me lose weight, and I'm back.
Good. I love that you're back. Dick, what about you?
Well, I just, Zoom was a savior, I think, for not just socially, but for my work, and everything we do can be done by Zoom. Our office was closed down. So I have a home office, and I would spend my day working at my computer here, and mostly on Zoom calls. But for exercise, for 40 some years, because I haven't played tennis really for a long time, true confession, I ride an exercise bike for an hour a day. But with that in mind, I have the latte on one side of me, I have the sporting page in front of me, and my iPhone nearby. So I'm not really killing myself, but I never miss a day. I 13 out of 14 days per hour. So it's not the greatest. It's not as good as swimming, but it's better than nothing. I ride a recumbent bike, an old guy's bike. It's a lot more comfortable for me, and at least it's something. But actually, very honestly, the pandemic hasn't really affected me that much.
Well,
For those reasons.
Great.
yeah, that's a good thing.
4
And
walls here, or
I
4
have that
walls in the
picture,
office.
I have that picture of you on the recumbent bike with your latte, your newspaper, and everything else. It's great for an hour. That's terrific. And Brian, what about you during COVID? What did you do to keep energized?
Well, to be perfectly honest, so I'm sorry if I get a little emotional here, but it's been a really tough period for me. I'm sorry. I lost my daughter
Oh my God.
a year and a half ago.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, she came down with mixed germ cell cancer
Mm. Wow.
2 months after childbirth.
Oh my God.
It kind of morphed into a more fatal cancer, PNET. They thought it was going to be a cure, and she was going to have to be able to have babies again. And anyway, it was just it was been living hell,
Yes.
And so she's passed, but obviously I'll never get over it. But so I try to stay incredibly busy and try just to move forward. daily. So I go for a walk of about an hour daily, and then followed, I do my yoga usually like at late at night, usually till like around 11 to 12 at night sometimes, but I make sure that I do a good hour to an hour and a half of yoga just to feel good and to breathe and to get rid of stress and to make sure my joints feel good and I feel healthy so I can start the next day fresh and feeling good about myself. And so the walking, the yoga have been instrumental in me keeping my sanity, basically. And then I do a little bit of, because there's been no gyms open, so I have a few weights that I lift, a few little dumbbells. Unfortunately, now I just found out I need a shoulder replacement, serving all those days. So it's,
You're the bionic man.
it's one thing after another, but every day is bright, and I have my granddaughter, and I have that she's just had her 4th birthday, and my wife Lori, and my other daughter Kelly, that she just flew into town, and I'm going to go visit with her Wednesday. We're going to go see her in New York. So I'm very upbeat. It's just, I'll live with that sadness, but there's life every day, a fresh breath to get, and some friends and people to laugh and smile with. And just, if anything, life is short, and, we got to take it by the horns and get as much as we can every day at fulfillment and enjoying this life. Because I'll tell you, anytime, we just lost Bill Scanlon, as you guys know, Dick and Rosie, and it's just a matter of that wake-up call. You wake up one morning and things are changed and life isn't the same anymore. And once that happens, where did it all go? And we never know when that roulette wheel is going to spin. So we all have to.
Brian, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. So,
I totally echo that, Rosie, and Brian, I know everybody on this call sends you many thoughts and prayers for all of that, because that's really.
Sometimes we think we have problems because we can't hit a backhand or a forehand or, those silly things. But what the meaning of having something that you love, and, but you're doing a great job of looking forward and moving forward, because I'm sure she would want you to do that and not to be so sad for her.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the lesson. If anything, get the most out of what we can and move forward. That's all we can do in life, right?
Well, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. So thank you for sharing all that, Brian. I know it's certainly not easy. So I think people in the senior games are interested in your thoughts about training tips, nutrition. What is there anything that they can do after, and the senior athletes are 50 years old and over? Most of us are probably that age. Is there anything that we all can do about about getting better, finding more information, nutrition, training, facilities, teams, coaches, and all that, Rosie?
Things are easier now, obviously, because you can go to the gym. There are trainers. There's more information. And then we've got Brian's full court. So for tennis, it really could help.
Yeah.
You understand, because when you get older, obviously, you're not going to move as well. You're not going to be as fast. Your reflexes are less so. But certainly you can improve, which I was really excited, because even though I had always played and hit the ball, but not religiously, not every day, not for a reason, not to get better. And this whole time I spent to get better, I wanted to see at 72, can I get better? And I did.
Wow.
I was
Wow, that's great, Rosie.
before I took 2 steps and I thought, how the hell did I ever get to that ball before? There wasn't a thought about which foot you put together and how many steps you take. And, it was like a reawakening of, your physical self, and the fact that you have to lose weight, you have to get more strength in your legs, all the things that you take for granted when you're young. And even up to probably 50, you're still fine and viable. I could still run and I remember, sort of playing with some of the older ladies when I was about 40 and telling them to hurry up and run. And then you realize that it's not possible because you know you don't have the strength, your legs are not conditioned, and your mind doesn't say go. Oh, or maybe your mind says go, but the body says no.
This is a problem. That is the
So
problem.
I found that to be, a great goal for me to see if I could at least get to a point where I could keep up with these girls in a rally. Because everybody hits the ball hard with a lot of topspin and all that, and I'm hitting balls up here, but it really did. I got better, and I was very happy, and I thought, well, hey, 72. I don't know about 73, but 72 is still okay.
Oh, that is a great story and so true, but what's really clear is your discipline about doing it every day and playing
that
the game in
helps.
your head about, can I get to the ball? That's great. That is great. Brian, what about you?
Well, on my block where I live here in Pasadena, so I don't know, you might have heard of this lady's name, Dorothy Matheson. So she was kind of my senior hero to look up to. She was 75 and over, a few years back, and what was the #1 in the world here in her age group. And I
Wow.
see her running all the time at 75 and over. She's very light, and it's physically light. So she has a frame that's easy to carry, when she runs. She would be running all the time. And I was just like going, wow, man, I'm having trouble walking, but she's running every day and she's playing tennis every day, traveling around the world, and she's loving life. And God bless her, it was incredible. So, for me, I think that it's really important as you get older. And of course, like Rosie and I played on the tour. So a lot of people that were professional athletes, our bodies don't feel as well as normal people. So, but I find that little bands, the little rubber stretch bands are really important for your shoulders to do little exercises. You can even get those bands and step on them and then pull them to the side or put them in the door. They have little door jams. They're cheap. They're like, $15 to $20 little cords that you can get attachments and put them in your door and work on little, extension exercises. It's super important to keep your shoulder joint strong. If you don't use it, it gets weak. And the same with your hips and everything. Little band, those type of exercises, and walking is one of the best exercises you can do because you're weight bearing. I like it. I used to mountain bike 6 days a week for 25 years. I lived in the Santa Monica Mountains. And now when my hips, I've said, okay, you know what? Let's keep doing that because I don't want to run. But I found that the repetitious motion of bicycling, that if I do it more than 15 minutes, it makes my hips tight. So walking is like the normal gait extension and weight bearing. And I found I feel so much better if I walk for an hour a day or whatever feels comfortable to you. It's the best thing I can do for my health. So I think those little bands and walking and God bless you. If you can get on the court and hit some balls, I would love to do that, but it hurts me too much. So, everybody needs to protect themselves. I play pickleball.
Correct.
I play pickleball. I played pickleball yesterday, so I had a lot of fun I played with Trey Walke, you guys know, and Russell Simpson, and then one of my buddies.
Yeah.
We were out there having some giggles, that's what it's about, enjoying and just doing what you can, getting outside, getting some fresh air and some exercise and having some fun. So
Yeah.
that's
That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And I share your comments about pickleball. Before we opened it up to everybody, I was telling Dick and Rosie that we've got a great pickleball club up here in Palo Alto, and I was helpful to them to convert the tennis courts, about 3 or 4 of them, to pickleball
boy.
courts. And so we've got just a great group. But the neat thing about pickleball is no matter who comes along, they'll say, hey, do you want to play? Here's a racket, you can borrow it. Here's a paddle, I guess, and here's a pickleball, and just join our group. So it's incredibly social, and they say that it's a good
That's
haven
why it's
for-
growing. That's why
Yeah,
it's
is.
growing, even more so than tennis. It's surpassed. I mean, they have so many people playing because you don't need technique. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter. Anybody can walk on the court and play and hit the ball.
Yep.
You're not going to say you got to hit it, on
Yep,
front.
that's exactly right. It is,
So
according to
that's why I don't play.
NBC, the fastest growing sport in the United States, and they have plans to go around the world.
Do you remember when you did that in Palo Alto at Stanford? You did the senior games and they had a pickleball. That's the first time I ever heard. That's 25, 30 years ago.
Hmm,
Wow, it was there 25 years ago, pickleball?
I don't
No,
remember.
20 years ago, because that's the first time I ever heard of pickleball, when we had the senior games. We
Well,
had tennis.
I heard of pickleball, I
pickleball.
think in like 2007, 2008, but when they called me about it,
No,
I said,
before that.
what kind of a name is pickleball? If you're going to be successful, you have to change the name. That's a stupid name. Well, so I was certainly wrong. So
Yeah.
anyhow, it may, yeah. So anyhow, I do remember pickleball. We've had a lot of experience with pickleball. I love their energy and all of that. And so it's just a lot of fun. So I would highly
Everybody has
recommend it.
fun.
Yep, to keep moving. Dick, what about you?
I think looking back, I think the biggest single thing is, we get on if we haven't played for a little bit, so many times the season goes, or it rains for a while, and we get on the court and we can't wait to play and run. And we try to start out where we ended up, where we left off. And I think that we really have to listen to our bodies, and we really have to, we feel really great when we're playing. So we play another 15 minutes, another half hour. And the next day we can't move. And then you're stiff, and then you hurt something the next day because you're stiff the day before. And I think just learning to listen to your body. And if you haven't played for a while, for whatever reason, just take your time getting back into it. Start up short court, pickleball if you wish, whatever. Short court rallies, gradually move back. Don't try to play at a tournament level if you haven't been playing tournaments. You have to work into that. And I think that it makes it more enjoyable. And I think in no matter what we're doing in sport, I think the important thing is that we enjoy it. And to be able to enjoy it, we take care of ourselves. We don't have to be the best conditioned athlete to enjoy a sport at a certain level. Diet, eating habits are important, but you can eat almost anything as long as you take control of yourself and don't gain 20 pounds and try to run like you did when you're 20 pounds lighter. I think nutrition is important, but it's not necessarily the only thing. And I think just things in moderation, not overdoing when you've left off for a while, really, really important. Overtraining is a curse of even young kids. And
Yeah.
It's just a real threat to all of us, because we're feeling great. It's a beautiful day and we want to just keep going. And it's not always wise. I thought Brian's story was really, really telling of the way he's handled this. Brian, I can't even begin to tell you how much I respect I have for you. And you hit it right in the head. We all go through this. It could be a sporting accident, it could be a recreational accident, it could be a natural cause to us, to a family, our best friend. You just never know. And I think that the biggest thing of all is we have to learn to enjoy the little things and what we have now, and not be too carried away with what's going to happen if we win this match or win this game tomorrow. And that's so insignificant. Rosie you said it well. It's so insignificant in the realm of things. So do what you're doing so you can enjoy it and prolong it as long as you can, but don't overdo it.
Absolutely.
Well, boy, I think the three of you are as terrific or more terrific as I knew you were going to be. So I'm hearing things from everybody like, enjoyment's important, moderation's important, exercise is important, sports important, and just take it one day at a time. So thank you, for all of that wisdom. What I'd like to do now, Annie, given the time, it's 4:50, is to take a couple of questions or comments from the audience. So I'm going to give the control back to you to moderate. And then at 5 o'clock, I'll come back again. And I just want to say a couple of words before we close this out. So people who are listening, chat, send a question to the chat, or whatever you want to share with the group. Go ahead, Annie.
Yeah, so now you have the ability to unmute your microphones if you had a question. It is easiest if you either wave your hand or raise your virtual. Anne Erdman,
Hello there.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I was late because I was in an art class, so I'm here now. But I grew up playing tennis at the Konakai Club in San Diego, California. And that was a lot of fun, a big private tennis club there. And played tennis for years after that. Can't play it anymore. I'm in a wheelchair, but I follow tennis. And I want to say to Rosie that I was a Rosie Casals fan beginning
I like
probably
that.
probably in the early 1970s, I would say, and so inspirational, so very inspirational. And so my question to both of you, to Dick and to Rosie, is who inspired you tennis-wise when you were first starting out, and who inspires you now?
Well, let me answer quickly. I don't know that I was inspired by one, person, one player. I was so inspired about hitting the tennis ball and running and the feeling that it gave me, As to now, who would inspire me? I think I inspire myself, as crazy as that may sound, because you have certain things that you feel you want to do or can do, and unless you do them, you don't know that you can do them. Now, I've played tennis, I know I can do that. I've taken on having my foundation because I knew I could do the tennis. So I think there's a lot of self-motivation. I have not been inspired by one specific, although I love to watch Roger play. The women are a little bit different because they're so different from my style of play, which was aggressive and serve and volley. But it was the times, we came up in California with hard courts, and that's what you did then. You served and volley. Now everything is slower thanks to Chris Evert and her two-handed backhand. So the game has changed a lot, big hitters, big players. I mean, you look at all of them, they're at least 5'8", 9, and 10. They're huge. So, the game's changed a lot. It's more of a power game. I would like to see more of the ins and outs of tennis, which are coming back maybe a little bit more so in the men's than the women. But I think we have a great new generation of players that are, starting to entertain us. And we saw a lot of them at the French. So I'm sorry I didn't answer your question, but I sort of did.
Well, you did. Yeah, in your own way, yes. And how about you,
Okay.
Dick?
I grew up before Rosie and Brian were a figment of folks' imagination. I love to watch Rod Laver play, and I just he won 2 Grand Slams as an amateur, which was everybody, and then as a pro, which was almost everybody again, and years apart. And you talk about now that Djokovic has won 2 career Grand Slams. That's nice. But what Rod Laver did was, I thought, for his time, was amazing, with all the great Australian players breathing down his back and some great Americans as well. And I can't go any further without giving a special tribute to Billie Jean King, what she and her group with Rosie and everyone else has meant to not women's tennis, to tennis in general, and women's sport in general. What they have meant for women's sports has been absolutely incredible. And really, I think Billie Jean King and Rod Laver, the 2 I admired the most.
Yeah.
And I love those days of Australians. They go out and they battle like crazy on a court. Brian, is a little before you, but I'm sure you heard stories that all of them then put their arm on each other and go out to the bar and have a beer afterwards. And that's what sports meant to be. It is a game, in the end. And these guys would compete like crazy, but they were best friends and really conduct themselves beautifully on the court, represent their sport well. Just really, Rod Laver and Billie Jean King to me were the highlights. And Sally DeVore, how nice to hear from you. Sally DeVore, thank you for your note.
So actually, I'll just say, Brian, why don't you answer that same question? Who were your heroes back then, and who do you follow now?
Well, as Dick was saying, I was kind of, the old Australian group was definitely, I was inspired by them. So for instance, Nail Bags, was Bob Carmichael, he passed away at 63, but he was about 15 years older than me when I was on the tour. And my first success was with Nail Bags. They called him Nail Bags because he didn't have enough money to travel on the tour. There was no money in those days. So he worked as a carpenter to raise enough money to get on the tour. And he also played around with, he was an amateur boxer growing up. So you didn't want to mess with Mel. He was one of the, but he had a beautiful, dry sense of humor. He was fun as the day is long, that guy. I loved every minute I spent with that guy. And, when he took me under his wing, we played doubles in 1977. So I was out of UCLA, I finished in 76. And when he took me under his wing, we played doubles. We got to the semifinals of the US Open in Wimbledon. That was my first success on the tour. And I said, maybe with that success, I could try and do better in singles. But the amazing thing was, it was like about the hard work and like the seriousness of what the task was. And it was like, you're playing doubles, Brian. When I hit that ball low, you cross and you kill the ball. I don't care if you hit the guy with the ball. You need to take it. You put the ball away. You put it away. And he would, if the ball came back, he would. That's not part of the game, Brian. You got to attack the ball and you got to put it away. And so, it was that tough attitude of just, we play hard, but when the match is over, we're all friends. We all go have a beer, and 100%, Dick, that was that attitude. And boy, it instilled that with me. I had a great inspiration from, that was kind of the last of the group, Ray Ruffles and Nails and stuff. And so, I was lucky enough to be around that and see that. So that was really cool. And then I had some great mentors in San Diego growing up at the public park there. Fred Kinney, who was the city editor of the Union and Tribune paper. He would take a group of the kids from Morley Field. He would take us to travel around to tournaments on the weekends, sometimes in Arizona and LA, my parents weren't really that much into the game of tennis. So, it was fantastic to have people help me like that. There was another guy that taught tennis in San Diego, Pal Blankenship. He was a junior high school teacher. He had a scholarship to UCLA, but he turned it down because his mom was an invalid and he needed to stay home and take care of her. So he became a local pro, but he helped me. And Ben Press at the Kona Kai Club. So all these mentors were always inspiring. And from Southern California, when I got to get out of San Diego when I was 16 or 17, got my license, it was guys like, Bob Lutz, Stan Smith, Jimmy Connors, Jeff Borowiak at UCLA, Haroon Rahim. Those guys were my idols who were playing in Southern Cal, who were top players. And I just looked up at those guys and said, wow, man, can I ever reach anything that these guys have? What can I take away from these guys? And I was inspired watching them play and would try just to mimic something I could that they did, try to emulate it to be better. So they were all my heroes and, everybody that played, but those are the people that I was around that when I got a chance to get out of San Diego, those are the first people that I saw and was able to try to emulate.
Well, that is great. Great stories, great history and all of that. Annie, I think that we're going to close this up now. I don't see any more hands raised, but I personally wanted to thank Rosie and Dick and Brian for your thoughts, the history, what you're doing now, and your amazing wisdom. So it's been a really lovely hour. And as we all said, the recording will be posted next in the next couple of days. In the meantime, I want us all to take a deep breath as California opens up tomorrow. Be well, be safe, and be smart about things in general. So I'm going to say goodbye.
And may I say a word in closing? It's also a lot of fun. This is a great sport to watch. And we have the Indian Wells tournament coming back this year, supposedly. And it looked like that's going to happen. But if you haven't seen World Team Tennis, it's an incredible part of tennis to watch. We have a men's singles, a women's singles, men's doubles, women's doubles, mixed doubles. I think college, as expenses for college athletics get more expensive, maybe we'll be turning to this at some point. They have to keep the sports alive. But Indian Wells is hosting a bubble, if you wish, over Thanksgiving week and beyond, right around Thanksgiving week for about 2.5 weeks of the finals or of the whole season. And I really encourage you to go out to Indian Wells if you don't want to fight the crowds of the first tournament out there. The second week or a little later on, the W World Team Tennis Tournament. It was held last year.
We all played team tennis. You played, Brian, didn't you? Or not?
I never did. play team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and was it Greenbrier last year, Rosie? And it was a
yeah,
tremendous
they did.
success.
They
And
kept it all in there and made it safe and showed the tennis community that they could play tennis tournaments and stuff like that. They did a great job.
But that's a great sport to take your
Yeah.
kids to, your grandkids to. You know, it moves fast.
Yeah,
The matches
you
are
cut it all in
short. A
2
lot of
hours.
excitement. Yeah, the whole thing is tremendous. So I just want to put a plug in for that. And
Yeah.
thanks for.
Well, that's nice. Yeah. Super.
Well, thank you all. I just want to close up by, it's so inspiring. I'm someone who manages the games, but was never much of an athlete myself, but everything that you say is so life affirming, and everything that you say I can use and I can do. And one of these days I will get out onto a court or into a pool or something.
Get Brian's
it's-
Get Brian's app.
Virtual, you gotta
It's-
sign up here with Brian first. He can give you all the lessons. So when you
Right.
step on the court, you'll be ready.
And I want to say, Brian, thanks for the shout out to John Letts, because iTennis and iPickle has sponsored our Pasadena Senior Games for many years. And with pickleball the way it is, it's really important to us, and the community sponsorship and the community partnerships.
You know, he just hosted at La Habra, his facility. I didn't get out there, $100,000 pickleball event. Supposedly it was on CBS this last weekend.
Oh, boy, really? Wow.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. It's been really special. Once again, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Kirsten, for making this a wonderful 6 months worth of fabulous stories. I feel very honored to have been part of this and to meet all of these wonderful people. So big round of applause, everyone.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you.
Thank you, guys.
Connect me with Brian. Okay, you can give him my number and stuff.
Yep,
Brian,
I will. I'll do
we'll
it.
connect you.
Keep
So
going,
connect,
'cause this is
Brian.
good stuff.
Yeah,
Thanks.
look-
Be well, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone.
Okay, bye, Ann. Bye,
Thank
Deb.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
I know we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Have
Thank
fun.
you.